Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm very happy to be back here on Bridges of Light International. I will wait for someone that will keep company to me during this lecture on our thoughts. We know that we all say that what we think becomes true, becomes reality. And today, this is the subject, tonight actually. Okay, I can see that you're starting to connect. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here for this lecture on our thoughts and on how our thoughts become real. Okay, there are a few people that have connected so far. Good evening to everybody. I'm very happy to be back here after this vacation gap that we had. First of all, I introduce myself to the ones that do not know me yet. My name is Laura. As you can see, I'm Italian. I live in Bologna. And while it's hard to define myself, I'm a numerologist. I'm crazy about quantum physics. I am a teacher of the dance of the soul. And I also teach communication and technique to feel the energies and deal with the energies. And since I'm crazy about quantum physics, I also guide some courses in which I speak about quantum physics and about some techniques that use number sequences and numerical figures to heal the people. Okay. So good evening to the ones that are connecting. And I will start speaking to you of quantum physics to get to know why our thoughts become real. And so we do have to be aware of what we think. Okay, thank you to everybody. Good evening. I am sorry I'm using StreamYard, and this way I cannot see the names of the people that are writing me and saying good evening. I apologize for that. It's not my fault, but you're all in my heart, and thanks for being here with me in my journey. So if you wish to sign your comments, I'm able to answer to you personally and to have maybe a more proper answer in case you have some questions or in case you pose me some issues that we can figure out together. Great. I think we can get started. We know that we all think all the time. One of our problems is that we think too much. But what is thinking? Have you ever thought of what thinking is? How does it manifest? How does it exploit itself into reality? What does thinking mean? Well, to think means to let out frequencies. When we think, which means all the time, we have always light getting out of our third eye here on the forehead. So we enlighten the environment continuously. What is the last part of material? What is the last part of the word, the smallest part of the word, the unique and only part that composes all the rest of the world and all of the universe? It's the light. It's the light. Light is what we let out of our third eye when we think, and according to the sort of thoughts that we emanate in that moment, we modulate, we shape that light into waves, which means that we let out frequencies. We all know that there are some good and bad frequencies. It depends on the type of thoughts that we develop. Frequencies are like waves, and they are measured in hertz. What is a hertz? A hertz can be measured looking at a wave and defining the length between the highest and lowest part of the wave and on how much time the wave repeats within 1 second. The wideness and the length of the wave in 1 second define the frequencies. There are some frequencies that are good for us, and there are other frequencies that are bad for us. And we do shape our thoughts continuously since we think and we modulate, we shape those waves, those frequencies. So, how do we create reality? Well, I will show you an experiment that has really changed the point of view and the interpretation of the reality. The first time it has been done in 1801, so a couple of centuries ago, but it has also been repeated in 1967 in Bologna's University here in Italy and in several other places afterwards, because it really demonstrates that reality does not exist unless we look at it. Would you believe it? Of course, this is strange. It might sound strange because we do think that everything is real if we touch ourselves, if we touch the table, if we touch the furniture around us. We do have the sensation that everything is real. Well, you won't believe it, but it is real in the measure we believe it is real. I will show you this experiment. Just a second. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Now, we all know what an atom is composed by, don't we? An atom is made by electrons, neutrons, and protons. And we used to believe it was the smallest part of the material. All right? Actually, it's not like that. If you see an atom, there is a very wide space between the electrons and the nucleus, where the neutrons are. If we could make a comparison between a normal measurement, we could say that between the nucleus and the electrons, there are 17 kilometers. So there is a lot of space. That space is not void. Actually, it's filled with an energy that is exactly the same one in any type of atoms you open up. So an atom of my body, an atom of this table, an atom of this computer, inside has exactly the same energy, and that energy vorticates into those voids. And that is also the type of energy that led people, scientists, to refer to a sentence that actually belonged to a metaphysical discipline, which means everything becomes from the same source. Everything is made by the same source. It is actually like that. There is always the same energy in any atom you open up. So how do atoms become different one from the other? Well, they differentiate because of the numbers of the electrons around them. But how do they compose so that we get to have what we have around us? Well, that void in which there is an energy that vorticates are filled with light, actually. And according to the light and the way it reflects within the atoms, we do get different substances, different atoms. It's all a joke. It's like a joke, okay? We live in what we call a reality that is made just of reflections, a reality that is not what we think it is. It's Matrix. It's exactly like in the homonymous film Matrix. Exactly the same thing. Okay, so in 1801, what happened? It happened that they were studying the reflection of the light. So, you see, imagine to have a wall with a split and to let a wave of light go through the wall. And then you have another barrier back here. And what sort of sign will the wave leave on this barrier? You see, it will leave a trace that is darker in the middle and lighter on the sides. Why? Because the wave is curved. Okay, so if you imagine this wave made by little balls, very tiny, small balls, one close to the other, the ones right here in the center of the wave will hit the back wall here right in the center, and we have the highest possible strength according to the wave. But all the rest of the wave will sort of hit the back wall, but on the side. So it won't have the same strength, it won't leave the same sign. It will be a lighter sign, okay? This was just to study the reflection of the light. They also did another thing. They took one wave and they wanted to have a wall with two splits, and they sent one wave through those two splits. What happened? The wave breaks into the different splits, going through them. And when the wave crosses into another wave, it multiplies and splits as well. Since it multiplies, it's something that we can easily see when we are in the sea, at the sea, okay? It's something we can manage ourselves to do when we move our hands in the water. The waves multiply, and in some points they do hit the wall, and of course they have the same drawing as before, which means very dark in the center and lighter on the sides. But also, when the wave will hit each other on the top of their height, there will be what is called a wave collapse. Just think of what you do when you go to the beach, okay? When there is a sea high, you see the waves going back and forth, high and low, and then when two waves come, one from one direction and the other one right from the opposite direction, they have the same length and same strength and same height. They hit each other and then they collapse. And when they collapse, there is silence and there is no movement. But is that possible? Apparently. Actually, waves are energies. So those energies do transform into something different. Let's see what in a little minute. This was the first experiment that had been done in 1801, just to make sure about how the wave reflection used to manage. In 1967, physicists made another experiment. They decided to take one electron and to shoot it through the slit in the wall and see how it hits the back wall. And this was not unexpected at all as regards to the result. Just imagine to have actually a little ball And this ball is just painted, has been just painted, so it does leave trace when it hits the back wall. And this is what happens. It does leave a trace that is quite net, okay? It's all the same. There are no difference between the intensity of the color in the center or on the side. It's quite net. Then they decided to shoot more than one electron through two slots, on the wall. And here also they had this result, which was actually expected. So far, nothing strange. But at a certain time, they decided to send one electrons through two slots. And whether you believe it or not, the result turned into this. How can that be possible? They put a Geiger, which is a little item, to see exactly what happens when you look at the electrons going through the two slots. And when they put the Geiger, the results turned into this. Then they took the Geiger off, and the results was this. This was the proof that the universe manages this way. If you look at it, it turns into a shape. If you don't look at it, it's just a world of waves. We shape the world. We shape our reality. Also, reality is something like it doesn't exist on my back. Then I turn around and everything turns into shaped and structured things. This also brought back to the attention of the scientist the thought that the importance of the person who observes is absolutely basic, is fundamental. It's absolutely fundamental. The person interferes with reality. We do act on our reality. But there is more we have to add to this. Imagine to take a wave and put it in a box. And this box is covered by mirrors in the inside. What does happen? This wave will go from one side to the other side, will hit one of the box's wall, and here, since there is mirror, it will reflect and it will multiply. I don't know if it ever happened to you to go through those games where you have one mirror in front of you, one mirror on your back, and you see your image reflecting infinitely times, okay? So this is what actually happens with the waves. This wave will start reflecting back and forth, back and forth. It would be like imagining this box full of waves, absolutely full of waves. But these waves will very easily collapse one into the other because they have the same strength, the same height. And as I said before, when one wave meets another wave of the same height, same strength, same length, and they come from different directions, they meet and they collapse and they start to form what are called wave collapse. And where there are the wave collapses, there reality starts to be created. That is the turning point. Where there is a wave collapse, reality turns into a shape. So far, I'd like to know, do you talk about the scientist's law of reflection? Yes, I'm talking about the scientist's law of reflection, about the experiment that has been done in 1801. And afterwards, I talked about the experiment of Wheeler that showed how actually reality turns into it only if we look at it. Okay. So far, do you have any question? No? Can I go further to show you something even more interesting than this? Okay, I'll proceed then. I'll carry on. So, we have to consider one thing. This is something that the most important clairvoyants used to say, and now has been also proved by the science. The clairvoyants used to say that we have a sphere all around us that has a 1 meter of diameter. And this sphere, they say, is the sphere of the soul. And we also have another sphere much bigger than the first one that has a 5-meter diameters all around us. The first sphere is the soul sphere. The second sphere is the consciousness sphere. And those spheres are covered by a mirror on the outside for the first one, the soul sphere, while the consciousness sphere is covered by mirror in her inside. So they look at each other. They both reflect each other. How does the science now say that this is real? Because they actually measured that around any human being, there is actually the same frequency for an area that actually covers up the wideness of a sphere of a 1 meter of diameter. And the same thing applies for the sphere of the consciousness. So actually, they do not say there is a sphere, but they do say that there is the same frequency spreading around a human being that covers up that geometrical figure. Those spheres look at each other. So look at what happens when we think. We always, when we think, as I said at the beginning of this lecture, when we think, it's like if we lean a thought on the waves of lights, and according to our thought, the wave turn into a certain shape, maybe a good shape or a bad shape. That depends on the hertz of the shape. If we have a nice thought, there are hertz that are good for us and for everybody. Otherwise, if you have a negative thoughts, they do have a negative influence on us and on the others. These thoughts go through the sphere of the soul. These spheres are both permeable, semi-permeable, actually. So part of my thinking will go through it, and it will hit the sphere of the consciousness that is covered by mirror. So part of what I think will turn back and will reflect back and will hit the sphere of the soul that is covered by mirror, and it will reflect back this wave. And this wave will multiply and multiply, and there will be many, many waves and many wave collapses, because many times those waves will hit into each other, they will bump, and they will start creating our thoughts. Our thoughts will become real in the right moment when those waves turned into wave collapses. You know that we often say that when you think, your thoughts turn back to you. Sorry, there is a question. One sphere represents our soul, the second our conscience. They are complementary. Is it true? What do you mean by complementary? That they are always together? Yes, of course. They are related? Yes, of course. The consciousness, our consciousness has to arise at our soul level. This is why we say, think of your consciousness, think of your conscience, and not think of your soul. In Italian, there is a way of saying that is, when people want to tell you, just rethink of that, think it over, it's not well done. They say, put a hand on your consciousness. We don't say put a hand on your soul, because the soul is perfect. It's our consciousness that is related to this dimension, to the way we behave in this dimension. Consciousness is a structure of no place, of no time, but it helps our body to move into this dimension and to act and react and make things. This is what consciousness does. The results of our acts and of our programs and of our projects depend on the level of consciousness, on how close we are to our soul level. The closest we are, the better we feel, the better we live. Why? Because a soul is a God reflection, and a God reflection is the wise part within us, the part that knows exactly what we should be doing, how we should be acting to realize ourselves in this reality, and therefore to be in joy, to be in peace. And this is the only reason we are on earth, to work out our way to experiment happiness. And we realize that we achieve that, only when we feel a completely realized person. I don't know if that was clear enough. I hope so. Anyway, let's see. Let's go on and see what happens. So, I have those waves going back and forth, and they create wave collapses, and there my reality starts to be true. My thoughts start to be real. As I said before, we used to say, don't remember that what you think turns back to you. Yes, that is absolutely true. You know why? Because these are semi-permeable spheres, which means that one part of what we sent here comes back. And since here it multiplies, there are several possibilities for those waves to go back through the sphere of the soul and go back to us. Also, when we think of something negative about someone, we get his situation worse. I'll give you an example. If we say that person is stupid, we sort of make that person more stupid. It's like if we crystallize that person in her stupidity. So just think of how many times we have said that of somebody. We have multiplied his stupidity in the world, and probably we have been told of something by someone more than once. So that's why it is very important to have a positive thinking. The importance of blessing, the importance of not judging. Observing is correct. Judging is not correct. Observing is what helps us and help the other people to get over their situation. To judge them keeps them in their situation, and it makes their situation worse. You see, there is an area where our thinking becomes real. This is the portion of the sphere, the soul sphere, where our thoughts can bounce back and forth. And the same thing is here for the consciousness sphere. And this is the right area in which the thoughts are created, and it's right in front of us. Right in front of us. You see, this is what the clairvoyants used to say. And what we think leaves a trace in any environment. It doesn't just stay there. It gets perceived. It gets perceived by the person, by the universe. This has been shown by another experiment, Montagnier experiment. Montagnier is very well known for the HIV research that he made, because he made this experiment. You see, here you have a little container in which there is liquid and DNA. He radiated in a, I don't remember the name of this in English right now. Anyway, another container that was so only the liquid. Radiate, what does it mean? That he let out some waves to carry on the information of the DNA. And then what happened? Into a little while, he started to get DNA also in the second container, the second little container. This means that waves do carry an information around according to the direction of that wave. So when we think of something, we create it. And according to the sort of waves that we are spreading out in the environment, we let it go around and we transform the environment. We do create in the environment. Isn't this amazing? Isn't this great? Now, some of you might say, I really wanted to create something, and I really tried at my best, with all my strength and with all my possibilities, but I couldn't do it. Why? Well, because quantum physics, this is quantum physics, responds only to one thing: to how I really am. Not to how I think, but to how I really am in my heart. Sometimes we are really convinced that we want to create something, we want to achieve something, but it's not true. So we might even achieve our goal, but it won't last. Why? Because we let out a different leading thought, a different thought, stronger than the first one, because the heart is stronger. Our consciousness, our unconsciousness is stronger than our mind. Mind is very strong and it obstaculates our life. But our heart is stronger, even stronger. So it's like letting out two different thoughts. It's like saying, I want to create this with my mind, but I want to create this with my heart. And usually those two things are one the opposite of the other. They are contrasting things. And the one that you create with your brain that is not connected to your heart won't last. So only thoughts that do create a link between heart and mind are the ones that we can let out in our reality and they can become true. Maybe I wanted, let's set an example, to become someone famous because I wanted my parents to see me. That was not my real wish, my real desire. My desire maybe is to have a happy family. I don't care if people see me, if I'm famous. So this mind thought is something that I do have, that I do believe I have that, because I actually have a need. A need has to be sorted out, has to be looked at, has to be considered in order to be fulfilled. But this is not the correct way to fulfill it. It won't be fulfilled. Maybe I become famous, everybody sees me, but not my parents. The way I want my parents to see me is to love me, to understand me, to take care of me. This is something different from what fame gives to people. So I do not achieve the result. I might become famous, but when I become famous, I do not have that sort of satisfaction, that feeling of nourishment and realization that I thought I would have when I would reach my goal. So only pure thoughts will manifest into reality. When I think and I do let some comment, maybe criticism, out of my head, and they are also linked to feelings like grievedness, anger, fear, they do leave trace. They do. We've seen how DNA was replicated in the second container, second little container. Do you remember? Okay. Now, if you think, I don't know if someone of you know the morphogenetic field by Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake made quite a revolution within the scientific world with the morphogenetic field. What does the morphogenetic field stand for? Well, Rupert Sheldrake says that even now we are creating a morphogenetic field. What is this field in this specific case made of? It's made by attention, maybe curiosity, maybe some feeling of astonishment for what I'm saying, or incredulity for what I'm saying, or some other sort of feelings. And of course, this is not a very strong morphogenetic field. Morpho comes, and genetic also, they all derive from Latin and Greek. Genetic, we know what that stands for, from genes, which constitute the characters, the trait, the most important trait of anything, in this case of our field, our area of our area of action. Morphos means the shape of the genetic, the shape of the genes, morphogenetic, okay? So we always create a morphogenetical field. We all know the family constellation. I guess we all know that, okay? Family constellation, why are they now scientifically approved? Because they do work on the morphogenetical field. How? Let's imagine that now a violent action takes place. Let's imagine now we are here speaking and a person rushes in from the door behind my back and slash my throat. Well, it's quite an image, I know, but it gives the idea, okay? Of course, the feeling that arise from that are quite hard. They have a very high level. And unless we elaborate what has just happened, they do leave the trace of the feelings we had, fear, anger, sufferance. They do stay there until something comes and cleans them up, until something comes and turns those waves into different frequencies. The morphogenetic field has that shape, the shape of those feelings, unless something interferes and changes it. Okay, the family constellation work exactly taking all this into account, which means they look at all the traces, you know, family constellation, how they work. You have people, maybe you have never seen those people that take part in the constellations with you, and you decide who is going to play certain roles of people of your family. And those people really get invested by the energy of that person, and they act in such a way that you understand all the dynamics. And what also happens during the family constellation is that often you get to know events that happen in your life of your grandparents or great grandparents that you knew nothing about. Maybe murders, abortions, violences, aggressive actions. And why, after a family constellation, these things do not interfere with us anymore? We are involved by the morphogenetic field of our ancestors for 7 generations. So any energetical trace that has been left there, we feel it. With the family constellation, we go change them, even if we don't know, even on events we had no idea of. Okay, this is how it works. This is how powerful we are with our thoughts, with our waves, with our energies. Let me see. Is it possible this real situation desires so much a thing, a person in grace to the law of attraction, they will find a way to come into my life? Okay, it is possible. This situation is true. If this is something I wish from my heart, but if you wish to have a person in your life, you have to be very careful, because otherwise, if we do something to somehow how can I say, grab that person into my life, that is not correct. That person has to come to you because that is her will. That is what he or she wants to do. Otherwise, it's a manipulation. If I pray God every day, I talk directly to him, he will come into my life. My spiritual evolution grows up. Yes, it's true. Because what is God? This is a good point. What is God? We all are God. God is into our soul. That is why I was saying the soul, our consciousness needs to elevate to the soul level. Because the soul is perfect, it's a reflection of God. We all have God inside, and the challenge that we have here in this dimension on the earth is to let it show and to let it act. So we have love. Actually, God is love. It's just pure love. And I always love unconditionally only if I love you no matter what you do. It's very hard, very hard. Only very, very few people can do that on earth. You know, when there are some very bad crimes, a few years ago in Italy, a 17-year-old girl and her little fiancé, they killed the girl's mother they stabbed her like 40 times, and also her little brother. Her mother, before dying, looked at her in the eye and said, I forgive you. They didn't kill the father just because he wasn't at home. Her father, when I arrived home, the first thing he said was, I will never apart from my daughter. I will always take care of her. That was such an elevated soul. He was such an elevated soul. He understood that beyond such an awful action, there must have been a wound, a hurt, desperation, so deep, so heavy, that it had to manifest in such bad action. Love is always healing. Love is the healing. And you know what? Of course, the couple, the girlfriend and the boyfriend, has been convicted, and they spent like 16 or 17 years in prison. And actually, the girl's father never abandoned her. He was always by her side. She graduated from college. She's also a very beautiful girl, and she completely recovered. Now she got out of prison 2 or 3 years ago, and she's actually a completely rehabilitated person. So that when we find that love that goes beyond the action, in that case, we do feel our soul. We act according to our soul. I will tell you a little story to end up this life. You know that we incarnate several times, and this is a Zen story. Let's imagine that there are two souls. Now they're not on the earth anymore, so they are disincarnated and they are in a very high dimension. They reach quite a high level of evolution. They're talking to each other and they are self-esteeming each other. So they're saying, look how many things we have done, what a beautiful level we have reached. We really have done so many things, so many experiences. And they keep talking like that. But at a certain point, one of them looks at the other and says, we still have to do something very important. What is it? We have to experiment unconditional love. That's the thing that we actually are missing, and we can't go forward without it. The other says, you're right. That is something we do have to experiment. So how can we do that? We have to go back on Earth. You know that our planet is quite complicated. It's quite complex. So I don't know if you have noticed that, but when you go on Earth, when you incarnate on Earth, you do gather some points on the evolution pattern because it's quite a complicated planet. So you do make some good steps on your evolution path. So they look at each other and say, yes, you're right. We have to go back and incarnate on the earth. You know what? One of them says, I will become a beautiful person inside and outside. I will be beautiful. I will be loving everybody. I will see love in every single thing. I will feel love. People love me, and I will make a net of love wherever I will be. The other says, if you go like this, I have to become an ugly person. I will do such awful action that no one will ever want to stay close to me. No one will ever want to know about me. So the other says, but why do you have to do such a bad thing? You know that when you go to Earth and you act badly, only negative things come back to you. And the other says, yes, I know, you're right. But if you want to see love in any person, and if you want to be able to love anyone, and then when you will meet me, such an ugly person, and you will actually notice that within that ugly person there is me, and I am like this, I'm this beautiful soul, and you will be able to love me for the soul I am now, then you will really have felt and experimented unconditional love. Wow, says the other. That's quite a heavy burden. You know what? I'll come to find you. Okay. They start moving towards the earth. There is the soul that is going to become the nice person in front of the other, and the second soul that will turn into a monster has an hesitation moment. So it taps on the other shoulders. And this one goes, yes, what is it? And then the soul that will turn into a monster says, okay, let's do this, but please find me quickly. Anytime I tell this story, it really moves me. I'm really getting emotional because this is what we are going to all be. What is evolution focus? Where do we have to go at the end of our days? We all have to turn into unconditional love. And because of the evolution laws, no one will be ever left behind. We all will become love. We all will be one. In order to speed up that process, we can work on what we think. We can work on the sort of waves we let out of our forehead to make a better world. We have to look into our heart, to what we really are, and let our heart speak. Our heart turn the word into reality. There is a comment, a very interesting talk. I want to make a reflection only. Love, God's love, unconditional love of all the universe can make our lives better. We need this high spiritual pure confidence. Thanks so much for your session. See you soon. Thanks to you. Thanks to you for your comment. God's love is the love for ourselves. That is why they say, love the others as you would like to be loved. But if I don't love myself in a good way, I can't love the other in a good way. Love is within myself. It's not just out of me. It's within all of us. And it's the possibility to be pure love. Okay. Thank you very much for being here. I'll come back next month with another subject. As I told you, I deal with several different things, so I am quite versatile. And I don't know, maybe I'll be speaking about quantum physics as well as numerology or something else. Thank you for being here, and I wish you good thinking. Bye-bye.